Hello and good morning. Today we'll be giving a presentation on for our CM project paper, and so let's start. Our research topic was TOR. It is a new kind of anonymous network, and within the slides and the research we will be going into its detail. Our group members are me, Sir Haroon, Hafsa and Azir. Due to some physical limitations, Hafsa and Al couldn't make it, but they did an equal participation in these slides and all the workings. So unfortunately, they couldn't make it, so we'll be presenting on their behalf. So, what is the purpose of this research paper? We'll be analyzing the work principle of TOR. How does it exactly work within its fine details? We discuss the design and TOR's working methodology. We identify the methods to de-anonymize the users. How can we hack the users? How can we identify the source, and the destination? We'll do some experimentation and we'll observe the results too, and also give you some recommendations. So let's first of all see the basic overall working of a TOR client. With a top client, first of all, a client connected entry card, then with a middle array, then with the exit and the destination, as you can see in the slides. But how does it happen? Then these entry and middle relays are extra link of chain which help encrypts the data and add layers to the encryption, as we'll discuss in details furthermore. And as described over here, the encrypted content remains encrypted till the exit relay. After exit relay, it has to be decrypted to find its destination, which could be any of the any possible sites. So, what's a Tor network? Tor network consists of an humongous amount of middle nodes and relays and some exit nodes. The user connects with the initial starting position, and then he is able to develop a circuit which connects him from his computer to a destination node using some of the middle relays and node. Also, the exit node is also available. Using this network, the user is able to access any kind of private sites without any worrisome that he would be identified. This can also bypass the government restrictions. Mostly, it is mostly used in China to access illegal content. Also, just sometimes it's also used for right activists. So, how do we access this Tor network? We use the Tor browser, which is based on an open source implementation of Firefox. It is a custom themes or the Firefox browser. It provides some basic functionality like DuckDuckGo engine and some basic mailing tool and other requirements. It is also used. It is the only browser that can access the .onion websites, which are the basic backbone structure of the Tor network and which are the most anonymous sites on the net, which you may say is a deep web. So moving on, literature review will be provided by Fiza.
Thank you so much, Mustafa, for the introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Faza, and I'll be talking the background and literature review of TOR. So, first of all, I'll briefly talk about the overview and the background of TOR. So, as Mustafa mentioned before, TOR is basically it's an onion steering anonymizing framework. And what happens is that TOR basically permits anybody to interface with sites that might be obstructed by severe governments, permit information to speak about authorities namelessly, and give methods for general correspondence among our organizations. So basically, it's just for those people who just want to remain anonymous. It can be for different people who just don't want to be tracked. And and basically, TOR was first evolved by the U.S. government in 2002, and it's basically a free and open source software for anonymous communication. And most of the users there obviously don't want to reveal their identity. And like Mustafa mentioned before, we'll be diving into more detail about the actual structure later onwards. But just like what happens is that each node is basically aware of the its previous node and the successor node, but it really doesn't know about like the entire encryption. So we'll be talking about encryption keys and layering further onward. And yeah, that's about it for the overview. So just a little bit more about overview is that basically it's activists can use it. If you basically don't want to be tracked, you can either be a businessman who just doesn't want anybody to track your information, or you can basically be somebody who just wants to remain anonymous. And yeah, it's just to basically the main purpose is just to remain anonymous. And yeah, now we're just going to be talking a little bit about the literature review and the related work. It's properly documented in the document with all the details, but I'll be briefly explaining over here each one of these. So we basically did a literature review of four of the works. So first of all, Clark J. What he basically told was that novice users couldn't understand the purely configured Firefox extension, and basically it didn't prevent any errors. So basically, this research, what it did was that it provided an opportunity to exploit the indicated weakness on the user's part. So basically, what it said was that user is also vulnerable. Anybody could attack on the user's, desktop or PC or anything. So this research mainly just talked about it. Now we're going to be talking about the second research that was performed by Liu. And what happened that was that it basically talked about that TOR can replace the IP, and it can conclude by presenting the idea to provide many properties like anonymity, censorship, and network neutrality. So basically, it's just like what it talked about mainly was that it provided a list of limitations in TOR which we can exploit to identify the actual source. So it was mainly about de-anonymizing the actual source. We'll be diving more into the details later, but this is what the this basically research did. And then we kind of reviewed the research of Johnson, and what it did was that it talked about the congestion and the increase in traffic, and that it could actually compromise the anonymity and the purposes a solution to manual configuration options. And in essence, what it wanted to say was that the potential difficulty that we might face during our experimentation research, is because manual configuration is more secure, and it's kind of like just really difficult to identify the real user. Lastly, I'm just going to talk about Moore and what he did. He basically talked about the Tor bandwidth and the coins, and he basically coined the idea of universal rate limit as a solution, right? So universal rate limit is basically the software that is compatible with the existing infrastructure, which hands down over another aspect which might be exploited to get the real source. So yeah, these are briefly just explained by me. Like these are just the literature review. So now Mustafa, over to Mustafa. He'll be explaining the design and methodology description.
Thank you, Fiza. Now moving on. The design of this TOR network. This is one of the most amazing inventions of human, not one of the greatest, but it's one of the most amazing. And its design is the one of the most fun part that of the TOR network. So let's look at it. First of all, you are a client. You have a message to send to our source. You have to make sure that it's highly encrypted and cannot be accessed by any middle service provider or a node or a relay or a server. So how do we do this? We provide for example, if you have not for this example, I'm using the diagram that you can see right now. You have three middle relays or nodes. You will encrypt your message in three layers: first layer, second layer, and third layer. The first node would have the first layer key. The second node would have the second layer key. The third node would have the third layer key. But here's the key point. None of those nodes knows at which position they are, except for the final node, which is the end node, because as it has to send data to the destination source. The middle nodes cannot really intercept the data as they don't know how many layers of encryption there exist, and whenever making single encryption is hard enough, adding even more layers, it's just impossible. So this is the main design, the overall, the high level design of this structure. And we will be looking into it further of how does it exactly work. So design consideration, whenever you're taking this into consideration, you have to consider its deployability. Deployability means that whether it is easier to place it, can people access it? Is it possible to deploy it in any place in the world? Can it be accessed through remote location and wherever anyone wants to access it? This is was the basis of the Tor network, and for now, let's analyze its usability. Tor networks are easily usable due to their very well-defined interface using the Firefox web browser as their source. That's why they can be used by anyone, anywhere. You just have to install the Tor browser and you can use it on your network, even on Windows and on Linux. The Tor browser are also flexible. They can work in any condition, in any given network, in any place that you want to work on all the possible devices. They are also available on Android devices right now, and it's very simple to use. You just have to open up a browser and access the websites. For accessing the specific website which are on the dark net or on the dark browser, you have to access the onion ring, which is not easier to find, but once you find it, you can access it. But it also comes at a compromises. These are the design limitations. First of all, it is a decentralized peer-to-peer system, which means that there are a lot of peer-to-peer communication going on, which slows down or boggles down the network to almost very slow levels. Most of these websites on the dark net are basically HTTP website, which you could just imagine are from age old 2002 websites. Other than that, there are also security limitations. We have mentioned that Tor is one of the best network in providing anonymity and security, but it can be broken down, it can be accessed, and it can be broken. So we have to also put that into consideration. Thirdly, you have to also talk about protocol normalization. That what kind of specific protocol will be followed at each and every single node? How many cells you use? What is the size of the cell? Cell is one of a part of a network which describes the unit of the message length. Whenever a message is encrypted, even in three layers, the size always remains same. So none of the intermediate nodes can know at which link layer or which part of the layer are they from. Therefore, it can only the de-anonymization can only take place at the starting and the end nodes. Moving on, we have to see at its we have to check on its component as mentioned before. The key identifies the layer or the part which is to be decrypted. This is just like a simple handshake or the handshake in TCP connections, or the public certificates that you have, where only two keys would exist: a simple public and private key, where the public key can decrypt the private key encrypted with the same number or the same factor. In this case, there are multiple keys and multiple layers which needs to be decrypted along the network layer. The cells, as I mentioned, are a particular message size or component which is usually around 512 bytes or 498 bytes, depending on the network protocol, which can include your message and the encryption itself, while its size remains always the same. The circuit is a path, just like an electronic circuit where there are resistor and node, the other thing. A closed circuit is a closed path from a starting node or position to the end node, the destination. This circuit is used to transfer your data from your place to the other positions. The future plans for the design. Right now, Tor is not perfect, as nothing could be perfect, but in future, we are aiming, the Tor network is being aimed to provide an high level of fast-paced security. This limitation in speed is one of the biggest problem of Tor, and some of the limitation on providing security. Some of the exit nodes that exist right now are on some vulnerable locations where high-level governments and agencies can access them, and therefore making the users come at risk. These future considerations would be looked upon and would be worked, and we're hoping we will have a truly anonymized network in the future, which can provide us a highly fast-paced, secured network to be used anywhere by anyone. Moving on, we have evaluation and analysis, which will be provided by FISA.
Thank you so much, Mushtaba. Yeah, I'll be explaining the evaluation and analysis. So basically, Mushtaba talked about the design and the structure of TOR and how it's evolving and the limitations of it all. But now, what we want to do is that we basically want to evaluate and analyze TOR. And basically, everybody wants to just remain anonymous, whoever is using TOR, because that's one of the main objectives of TOR. But basically, there are also some loopholes, and we'll be discussing those loopholes, and we'll be evaluating how but we'll be evaluating the severity of those attacks and how basically they are carried out. So yeah, I'll be explaining first of all, I'll be explaining the passive attacks. Next time, please. Right. So I'm going to be explaining passive attacks. I'm not going to go into much detail, but it's just like an overview. Passive basically just means that you're not going to be actually doing something. It's just like you're kind of snooping around and just looking into things. Like for example, you can observe the user patterns, traffic patterns. You can observe the user content. Whatever the user on the TOR is browsing, and you can option distinguishably basically just means that clients can choose their own configuration settings, but once basically anybody has that option, that could either lead them to become more public, or just kind of make their identity more public. And end timing correlation is basically like if the traffic at the initiator and responder is observed, and the attacker would be able to figure out the link. So basically, I'll be showing you a diagram later onwards. So it's like the attacker tries to figure out the timings at the starting, at the ending, and then it tries to make sense by using some kind of coefficient relation, which we can discuss later. And then he can verify if it's a TOR node or not. And similarly, there's another similar attack of that comes under passive attacks, is the endpoint correlation. And what it does is that it identifies the endpoints in a stream, and then packets are basically counted, like to make sure that they're equal or not equal. And another really interesting passive attack that I personally found really interesting was the website fingerprinting. Now, what it does is that basically whatever fingerprints the database is, what of the file sizes and the access patterns, whatever the user are basically doing is basically just stored in the adversary. And whenever a user basically just makes a connection to it, it basically just checks in their database and then confirms that if it matches with some already existing key values, basically means, it's basically one of the passive attacks. Now you've just seen the overview, like the rough idea of what passive attacks are. I'm going to move to another category, that is active attacks. So active attacks, we also have different, basically subcategories. You can compromise keys. There's iterative compromise, runner recipient, replay attacks, smear attacks, tagging attacks. So I'll be explaining each one of those really. So compromise attacks is basically when um, you know, obviously your keys are compromised. Somebody just gets a hold of one of your keys, one of the attacker gets it. Obviously, they will not be able to decrypt the entire message. As Mustafa mentioned, the message is basically sent in layers. So, a person can just, if a person just has one key, he cannot fully decrypt the data. But yeah, that's about it for the compromised keys. And it's really limited. The scope of this is really limited because, the keys are periodically really changed. So that doesn't really make an effect on it. And now the iterative compromise is basically when whenever there's a system intrusion. So attacker basically comes inside the user's desktop, and if they and he tries to get the data out of it and just, kind of use it to just make sure that it's a Tor network or not. So what it does is that if that's basically done in the lifetime of the circuit, then it would be actually an attack. If not, then it will just be discarded. So then again, this is not really severe attack on Tor. And then there's another interesting one that's basically running a recipient. Now it just matches the patterns of user, and then it basically makes sure that whenever the patterns match, it just basically makes sure the private information is just compromised. Now, replay attack, what it does is that it kind of replays it. So, it kind of resends it, resends the attack. But Tor is basically not vulnerable to these replay attacks because basically the session key obviously would be changed in every single step, right? So Tor is not really affected by replay attacks that much. Now we're going to be talking about smear attacks. So smear attacks is basically just a general overview of when people just do undesirable acts so that the actual network is starting to go down and the reputation is kind of like ruined and nobody basically uses it. So I mean. Obviously, the abuse is basically just reduced by the exit policies that are basically implemented by Tor, but it does really not guarantee any kind of like preventing any abuse. So yeah, I mean there is some kind of a uncertainty in this. Now we're going to be talking about tagging tag. This basically just means the contents of the message has been tagged or changed. So basically, Tor just uses integrity checks. So then again, this attack is not that much affected on it. So overall, you can see that even in passive attacks and active attacks, Tor is not really that affected. The implementation is pretty clever, and it almost guarantees that your security is just secure. Now I'm going to be talking about directory attacks and rendezvous points. So the directory attacks basically include the destroying directory servers, subvert a directory server or just subvert a majority of the directory servers, right? So it's basically just like you could just destroy the servers, and obviously if there are less servers, then human intervention is important, and then that would basically cause an attack. And then basically it's like basically the second one is when basically it gets under the attacker, and then yeah, the attacker can just misuse it. And severity majority means just means that if there are enough nodes that are just compromised and attackers have control of them, then definitely they could kind of just get control over the entire circuit, and then they could just decrypt the entire data. So now I'm just going to be talking briefly about the reverse points. So it's just like an attack on the introduction point, like the starting point. Whenever it's basically like the hidden service is basically disrupted by an attacker by disabling its introduction points, at the start. Whenever it's hit, then, that would basically cause an attack over there. And then compromising an induction point, introduction point is basically when it just kind of, the attacker basically prevents a valid request from reaching it, and or basically just it overwhelms it with, lots of introduction requests. So it just wants to overwhelm the, node. So that's mean that is what the attacker tries to does in the compromise of an induction point. So in the compromise of a rendezvous point, what it happens is that it the shared key session is basically used between the two nodes, and it's kind of encrypted, and the data is quite sensitive that just passes through this point. Like this is like a really sensitive point through which the data passes. Right. So yeah, now we will be moving on towards the really interesting part. Now this was just like the types of attacks, and as you can see, TOR was not affected by most of them, but there were some kind of attacks that that did have an impact on TOR. So now I'm just going to be talking about the main crux of our entire report. It's basically about the de-anonymization of TOR users, right? So our main purpose over here was that we wanted to see that can the user be identified in TOR or not. Like we wanted to basically find those loopholes and then sort of work on them. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the threat model, attack, and methodology. Right. So as you can see in this picture, like it's really visible as well. Uh, this basically model, what it does is that what it does is that the attackers try to determine the network identity of the Tor user who's just trying to access a particular server, right? What it does is that it tries to inject somewhat kind of it just tries to inject a malicious pattern or something like that. Like you could see over here, like it's written the victim client is just basically working and he's trying to access a server, and this is the Tor network cloud. And what the attacker does is that he smartly injects some kind of a pattern in the actual data of the node. So yeah, that's just what it does is that it indexes it's there, and then what happens is that you know um, it's basically you know this model basically just works when we want to anonymize just like one user. It will work for more. So as you can see over here, yeah, it just goes inside there, and when it comes out, you could see that there's a network flow data. And what it does is that basically the attacker tries to see that if he finds similar patterns at the starting and the ending node. As you can see, they're not encrypted. Like the inner ones are all secure, but the starting and the ending one, it basically sort of checks if the computing correlation coefficient is same or not, right? So whenever it's same, it's basically like whenever it's same, it just thinks that yeah, it's same, and then it just kind of doesn't adapt. So yeah, now I'm just quickly going to be moving on. I'm just going to be wrapping this up. All right, next slide. So now I'm just going to be talking about protocol analysis and traffic analysis. So in the protocol analysis, it's basically just that it's uh, it's basically just that you have it's basically just based on the user's IP. Like if you're trying to get the data out of the IP, you usually basically see that there's a usually a long TL session. There's a self sign and randomized certificate. There's usually regular timing characteristics, and there's the concept of Tor bridges that basically and every user who's just accessing a Tor without a bridge is almost certain to be identified as a Tor almost by any adversary, right? And traffic analysis is sort of a different when you're trying to basically analyze the actual traffic. So protocol analysis was just working on the IP, and traffic analysis was working on the actual traffic, like whatever was generated at the time. So basically, what it does is that it kind of uses the number and sizes of packets and the timing characteristics along with bandwidth variations to show that yeah, this is happening. I can make sense of it, and yeah, it then after once it's done, it can definitely kind of identify the source of the user. Overall, it's just a combination of both of them usually work, but yeah, that's just the whole idea of it. And now, uh, most of the details are documented in the document. Now, Mustafa is just going to be quickly talking about the experimentation.
All right, moving on. So experimentation. So we wanted to test out all this information knowledge practically. So we had a basic setup by modification on the torque default file. So this file comes with the torque browser itself, and there was some code that we pasted into it. We modified. This is the mentioned code where we have designated a port. We have described that we are not an exit relay, and we are nicknamed it something that is just not ordinary and with the contact information if Tor wants to contact with us. With this, we also provided port forwarding so that our relay node could be used by anyone on a Tor browser. So we had some information regarding this. We were able to analyze the logs. The logs provided a little bit of information regarding the source and the next destination in the relay, but as we have mentioned with the security analysis and the security methods of Tor, and as well analyzed this, how to break the security of Tor, it was not possible with our given resources to be able to de-anonymize or experiment to decrypt this data, but we could identify this the middle nodes and the relay nodes. This was our basic experimentation, and we had a little bit of idea how the Tor relays are used and how the data is encrypted. And so that's all for experimentation. Now moving on to conclusion.
So I would just quickly like to conclude everything. Basically, like we said that we reviewed the like it's mentioned in this slide is that basically we review the general usage of Tor along with providing a detailed analysis of Tor security potential with the backing of our research and experimentation. Just to elaborate on this a little bit, I would just like to say over here that basically Tor is basically just the main purpose of Tor is just to keep the the identity of a user really private and not expose it. But generally, there are loopholes. Like we discussed over here, there were some attacks that were being affected. That basically did affect Tor in some way. So there's just like that, and also we just wanted to the overall what we learned from this was that the we could actually kind of de-anonymize the user. Like we could what we could actually do is that we could first identify the potential IPs through the protocol analysis and then basically verify it using traffic analysis. The protocol analysis basically would just kind of see the suspected IPs and then just sort of work on them, and then it could also work on the traffic and see that if it's actually browsing and the copying correlation like we mentioned before. So once it all makes sense, the attacker basically it can de-anonymize the user. So yeah, that is a possibility over here. And also just wanted to a little bit add over here the findings of our project. So our project was basically, as Mustafa mentioned, was that we kind of configured two relay nodes on our desktop. And what basically happened was that we learned that there were TOR logs that were coming in and out. So what we was doing with the traffic was we could actually monitor traffic that was coming from the previous node and the traffic that was basically sent to the next node. But we didn't know about the actual destination or the main source of the actual hence the name Tor. So it's just that we were only able to see what was in our previous node and in our next node, but not the actual entire whole working of it. So even though we were able to see the traffic, it was actually encrypted and we could not decrypt it because it was obviously using the Tor protocol. And this basically demonstrated that yeah, it is somewhat secure, but there are loopholes and there are limitations as well. And since we could not have afforded to basically make our desktop as exit node, so definitely we could not have done that. So in a nutshell, it's just that de-anonymizing Tor is just not a really easy task, but obviously it can be done, and that's about it. And I would really like to thank you for just kind of just being here. So yeah, I think this would just conclude our presentation. Would you like to add anything else, Mustafa?
Yeah, just thank you for going through our presentation. It was fun, and once again, thank you.
All right, bye.